Welcome to the 2025 Greenland Deliberative session. My name is Vincent Marconi, and I'm your new town moderator. Before we begin, can we all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? And our flag is right behind everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we begin, I just want to make some brief introductions, introduce you to the folks up here with me. We have our chairman of the board, Vaughn Morgan. Paul Stanley's joining us, vice chairman. Stefan Toth, Laura Malloy, Frank Hensler, chairman of the budget committee. Brian Maduro, vice chair of the budget committee. Amy Bauer, our new town clerk. Our new town administrator, Steve Smith, is joining us. And Charlotte Hussick, our administrative assistant. Do you want to address this now? Oh, and I'm sorry, Michelle. Our deputy town clerk, Michelle Otten, over there. Vaughn, do you want to address everybody now?
I think all of you have kind of noticed that there's been some changes in the town hall over the past year, actually over the past 2 years. So I'd like to take a moment just to summarize and bring you up to date on what's been going on. You'll notice that we have a couple of extra chairs up here for our budget committee members. So if anybody out in the audience has any questions for the budget committee, please feel free to ask them. That's what they're there for. And it also shows that the budget committee and the board of selectmen have worked diligently together to put together a budget for the town committee. So hopefully you'll take a look at that and agree with us. I'd like to start by commending my fellow board members here at the head table because they've accomplished more in the past 2 years than most select boards do in 10. I refer to them as the fix-it board because they have been fixing things ever since they got elected. Things like the budget, the audit, salary adjustments, personnel policy, health care plans, and initiating a new operating system for the town. And this is all in addition to doing your everyday prudential affairs. They've done a lot of work. They've put in a lot of hours, extra meetings, and extra workshops. And I have to tell you that it's been an honor for me to work with them. They are a young, energetic, aggressive, and forward-thinking group of people who will bring new thoughts and ideas to the town. And all they ask of you is to participate. Show up at their town meetings and share your thoughts and ideas with them. They are not your adversaries. They are your team. So it's been my honor to be able to have worked with such a group. Next, I would like to thank Paul Sanderson, who at my request 3 years ago stepped in as interim town administrator until we could find somebody to fill the slot permanently. Usually when a slot like that opens up, we turn to a municipal headhunter to help us fill the slot. And their reply was, well, you'll have to get in line because we have 4 towns ahead of you. Paul's knowledge of municipal affairs and the fact that he has served on just about every board and committee in this town has enabled him to man the cockpit and fly the plane without interruption. Until we could find another replacement, he has made our transition from our past town administrator to the present a much smoother process. And in the process, he has saved this town not only a lot of time, but a great deal of money. So thank you, Paul, for your service to the town. brings me to our new town administrator, Steve Smith. Steve is a homegrown boy. He was born and raised here in Greenland. His family name goes back to before this town was incorporated. He knows Greenland and the seacoast like the back of his hand. Steve comes to us with almost 40 years of municipal experience. He served almost 30 years on the Port City Fire Department and over 10 years on the planning board and as chairman of the Board of Selectmen. And I also like the fact that he's, as a town administrator, is also a taxpaying resident. That has some positive implications. So we welcome him and look forward to working with him. Next, we mosey across the hall to the town clerk's office. Most of you know by now our former town clerk, Marge Morgan, is starting to enjoy her retirement. A lot of you have gotten to know Marge personally. She's gotten to know a lot of you personally. She knows your names. She knows where you live. She knows your license plate numbers. And she's Italian. You really sound a little bit like a Al Pacino movie, right? Well, we want to thank her for her 18 years of service to this town and wish her a happy retirement. And I'll take it from there. So she's left her office in the very capable hands of her able deputy of 15 years, Amy Ballard. Oh, one thing, Mark. Happy birthday. And I believe Amy has just become a new grandmother, right? A boy and a girl? A boy. Well, congratulations to Amy and Liz. So Amy has already hit the ground running. She has already taken on her new deputy, Michelle Obedeck. And they both stand ready to help all of our residents with their property taxes and registrations. And we wish them the best also. And next, I'd like to sincerely thank all the employees of the town of Greenland for the hard work in making this a smooth operation here. And I'd also like to especially thank all the members of the boards, commissions, committees, trustees. They work for you, and they work for nothing. So my hat's off to them. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our new town moderator, Vince Marconi, to his first deliberative session. He stepped into the shoes of the legendary Jean Buffard, who served, I believe, almost 19 years as our town school moderator. Vince has already worn the saddle with a couple of elections, and it seems like he's going to be good at it. So we wish Vince many more meetings in moderation. And lastly, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I want to thank all of you who show up at these meetings year after year. It seems like basically the same faces. You are a handful of people who represent over 4,000 residents in this town. You're the heartbeat of Greenland, and you are what makes this town such a great place in which to live. So as Paul Harvey would say, that's the end of the story. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, Father. One more public announcement. I think Kathleen from the Conservation Committee would like to make an announcement.
Hello. Kathleen Babin Johnson from Sanderson Road on the Greenland Conservation Commission. I guess I need to speak into it this way. We are holding a photo contest in conjunction with the updating of the new natural resources inventory that was done initially in 2010. The contest will begin March 1st, and it will end sometime in June. There'll be prizes, cash, and gift cards from local merchants. There will be prizes for adult and underage categories. The details will be posted soon on proper media, and you should see posters in all the local merchants' establishments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're all here today for the deliberative session, and as most of you know, we are an SB2 town. We have been since 2015, and what that means is our town meeting is bifurcated. Today will be the deliberative session. We're not going to vote on the actual articles, as we all know, but it's a chance for the Board of Selectmen to present the articles, and then open up to the voters for discussion, comment, questions. You're going to be acting as a legislature for your town. So that's what's going to happen today. And then the election is going to be on March 11th. Polls open at 8 a.m. and they close at 7, just like regular elections. And that'll be right here on March 11th. And that's where we'll actually vote on the articles. What are the rules for today? We don't have any set rules for town meetings. What has been done in the past, what we're going to do today, are just general rules of parliamentary procedure. We're not going to use Robert's rules to the T. Why? Because they're just under 500 pages, and most deliberative bodies that use Robert's rules, they have a dedicated parliamentarian whose job is just to decipher these rules. So we're going to operate under general principles of parliamentary procedure and fairness. So in other words, if a member wants to speak, you're going to have that opportunity to speak and address everybody. What's the procedure going to look like today? We have 23 articles on the warrant. 6 of those, I believe, don't require any action today. The town officers, and I believe there's 5 articles that deal with amending the zoning ordinance. So those we're not going to deal with today. What I may do is briefly open up the floor if folks want to ask questions or discuss briefly the zoning amendments. And then we have from Article 7 to Article 23. What I'll do is read the article first, and then have a member of the select board come up and give a quick or long presentation on that particular article, and then we'll open up the floor for discussion. And if you would like to state an opinion or ask a question or debate, I just ask you to line up at the microphone in front of me. I'll call on you and just state your name and your address, and the floor is open to you. This is also your chance, if you want and if it's permissible, to make an amendment to an article. There are certain rules regarding amendments. The big rule is an amendment can't seek to change the subject matter of the article. What does that mean? Well, if there was an article that seeks to raise appropriate money for a police car for the town of Greenland, you can't make an amendment to change that to a fire truck. Another important limitation for amendments, an amendment can't seek to increase a line item in an article for appropriation or the operating budget by more than 10%. But if somebody does choose to make a motion to amend, I ask that that be in writing. You can come up here, present that to me, and I'll give it to our town clerk. What I think I'll do is have everyone who wants to speak first on that particular article, and then we'll address the amendments if there are any. All amendments need to be seconded, and if there is a second, we'll go right away to vote on that particular amendment. If you haven't done so, please register with the supervisor up front. He'll check you in and then give you a voting card. And the voting cards are the green cards that you should have been given. You can also do a motion to reconsider a vote. That needs to be seconded. And you can also do a motion to restrict reconsideration. And that needs a second as well, too. So if there's no questions, what I'd like to do is get right into deliberating these articles. And folks, if you haven't done so, there should be voter guides up front if you don't already have one. And that's what I'm going to be reading from. So the first article is the election of town officers. The deadline for running was yesterday at 5 p.m. And as you can see, I suppose you can do a write-in campaign if you really want to. We have our town clerk. That will be on the ballot this year. 2 slots for selectmen, 3 for the budget committee, 2 for cemetery trustee, 2 for the library trustee, 1 for the trustee of trust fund, 3 for the planning board, and 3 for the zoning board of adjustment. And there's also a school board slot open as well. The next articles, Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, deal with zoning. They're seeking to amend the zoning ordinance. And as such, what I'll do is, if folks want to ask questions or have thoughts on these articles, what I'll do is, if there's any member of the planning board who's present and would like to address any of these articles, I invite you to come up and speak now. If not, I'll open up the floor briefly for discussion if folks want to discuss these particular articles. Seeing none, please.
Morning, Leonard Schwab, Water's Edge, 103 Water's Edge. I just want to ask a question as to the origin of these zoning articles you brought them about, because I noticed in Article 5 and 6 it says this zoning petition is not recommended by the planning board. So that raises the question, where did it come from?
So the question is, where did these amendments come from? Does anyone up here know that answer? Do we know where these zoning amendments came from? They were all petition articles, so they came from citizens.
No, the 2 you're referring to.
Where did the others come from?
The original zoning articles came from the planning board.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Mark 2094 Post Road. This is our first opportunity to see this information. I think it deserves a little bit more review than just a person. We have 5 articles, about the planning board, and I'm sure where they are. I'd like to take the time, we're here, to talk about the articles. I mean, for example, the planning board doesn't support 2 articles, making a lot. I'm hoping there's someone from the planning board that can speak to that. Or the petitioners who put the article in, to speak to favorably. This is the only opportunity we have to speak to this before we vote on it as a town. Thank you.
Yes. So the question, so this gentleman wants to keep this open for a little bit more if there's a discussion. So my understanding, I don't know if there's anybody from the planning board here this morning, but there was an opportunity. I understand there was a public hearing for these articles a few weeks ago. There's Bob Dion.
Good morning, I'm Bob Dion, I'm from the planning board. There's been several articles that we submitted, and 2 articles that we did not submit. And can you hear me okay? Okay. I've had that problem before with this mic. So we submitted some articles. First one is for child daycare facilities. I don't think we'll have likely questions about it. And then there's 2 of them we submitted about wetlands protection. Yeah, the child daycare requirement reflects new state laws. So it brings us, if we pass it, it brings us into compliance with new state laws. Let's see, the second one is zoning or wetlands protection ordinance. conditional use permits. So if the planning board wishes to add to here the conditions that these also cover commercial and industrial use buildings and sites, because we expect the planning for these to encompass the proposed changes by these, by any commercial or industrial sites, as well as residential sites that are making application. We feel these are planning functions to make sure that they comply with regulations, ordinances, and we think the planning board is best fit to do that. That is recommended by the planning board. Number 4 is zoning, residential open space, conservation, subdivision. In this particular case, we submitted this article because of an unusual situation that occurred on Breakfast Hill Road, wherein a developer and applicant applied for an open space development permit, but they didn't comply with the requirements. But if we had asked them to revert to the standard requirements, they would have filled up the whole area with housing and would not have left any open space. So we felt it was important to modify the requirements to give us a little more leeway to help the developer come up with a plan that would meet the developer's needs as well as maintain a lot of open space in the region. We thought that was important. Number 5 is, it's not, this was submitted by petition, and number 6 was submitted by petition. They should be spoken to by somebody else, I think. Any questions?
Article 3. Then section 18.10.
Just speak into the microphone.
Yeah, can you use the microphone? Thank you.
On Article 3, spoken to by Bob Diamond here, 5th line down, amend section 18.10. It's not just the positives that are in there, there's the negatives. There's a line that's a strikeout. Special exceptions granted by the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Adjustment. That is in effect a power grab. I don't agree with that. And it's caused certain people to sign up for election on the planning board because this is not a good thing. Totally disagree with it.
Frank Catamano, planning board. What Leonard's referencing is we debated this on the board. Commercial industrial applicants have to come in front of the planning board for site plan review. We felt that that was the correct area to discuss and debate beyond a buffer impact. And this is giving up to 1,500 square feet of buffer impact. This isn't waiving the buffer, this is nothing like that. And we felt it was a burden on any applicant to have to come in front of us, do site plan review, and then have to go in front of the ZBA to do the same. It's not a power grab. We felt it was better to have planners look at this during site plan review than a zoning board to look at it as an extra step, an expensive step for an applicant, whether it's a homeowner, industrial, or commercial. So I think Leonard doesn't understand why we did it because he never came to a meeting and didn't hear us discuss this. And he's making a statement that it's power grab and it's caused people to run for the board. Anyone can run for the board if they want to, especially if they don't agree with this. But if he was there, he would understand why we did that instead of just making blanket statements at the deliberative session.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Peter Kinner, 25 Shore Drive in Greenland. I think one of the really good things about this amendment, which is for number 3, is that the planning board is now going to be working more effectively with the Conservation Commission, which I think is a really good thing on these things. And I think the other discussion that we had during what was it? Planning board meeting, was this issue about 1,500 square feet. And I think there was general agreement of the planning board members and the Conservation Commission to relook at this number next year. The 1,500 square feet is probably too much. So just put that on the record, and hopefully that'll happen next year. So, thank you.
John McDevitt, Bayside Road. 1,500 square feet can be debated, but just so everybody here can understand basically what that is. Think about a cape or a small ranch. The front door, 2 windows on each side, and a one-car garage. That's approximately 1,500 square feet. So we can debate whether that is too much or too little, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an insight about what 1,500 square feet is. It's not 1,500 feet going into the wetland buffer, it's square feet.
Any further discussion?
1,500 square feet is approximately the size of 4 of those tables stacked.
10 by 10 is
6 tables.
So that encompasses the garage itself. If you have a small house, and this is a maximum buffer impact, that doesn't mean that we're going to grant everyone 1,500 square feet. It's lot dependent. So if someone comes in and they meet most of the requirements, there was, I guess, recently a case in front of the zoning board, and they were asking for 89 feet of buffer. So that sets a maximum. Right now, you can go in front of the zoning board if this does not pass, and you can request 5,000 square feet of buffer impact. There's no limit. So this sets a maximum at the planning board level, how much you can impact of the buffer. And it also is a maximum, so if you're going in and you need 35 feet or 120 feet, you can look at that individual case and judge that as it's. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Barbara Fleming, 94 Post Road. I guess for the record, would like to say that as of now, no one who submitted the petition is standing to speak to Articles 5 or 6. I don't believe unless they're ready to speak now.
I think that's their choice. If somebody does want to speak to Articles 5 and 6, that's their time now to do so. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 7, and that's the operating budget. So I'm going to read this article first, and then I'm going to have Paul Stanley come up to give a quick presentation. The operating budget. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles in other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by vote at the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $6,873,419. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $6,647,366, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 1014, Roman numeral 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. I don't think there was one period in that whole paragraph. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee 10-0. I invite Paul Stanley, you can sit there or come up here.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So I'm Paul Stanley, Vice Chair of the Select Board. Not going to give a presentation per se, but just a little bit of commentary on the process of how we got to this point. This is really only my second time going through the budget process, and the first time I've been really fully engrossed being on the Budget Committee as well. And I'll say, I think it is a very good, well thought out process. I personally believe that the number one role that we have as a select board is to hire good people within the town to do their jobs. And we happen to have some very good department heads right now in police, fire, town, library, and that's where the budget process starts. We ask them to come before us and present their budget of what they need. We give them some guidelines on what we think is fiscally responsible and ask them to do their best to stay within them. And I think this year they all did a very, very good job of that. So trusting their judgment and trying to provide what they need while balancing what is fiscally responsible for the town is our role and the budget committee's role. And it's been through many, many steps of looking at this as a fine-tooth comb, and I think we're presenting a budget that speaks for itself and is good for the town, good for the departments, and fiscally responsible. So we'll be happy to take whatever questions you have on that.
Okay, is there any discussion on this article, Article 7? Seeing none, we'll proceed to Article 8. And this is town road repairs for 2025.
I would make a motion to restrict reconsideration.
So there's a motion to restrict reconsideration of Article 7. Is there a second? There's a second. So all those in favor of restricting reconsideration for Article 7, please raise your voting card. All those in opposition, please raise. All right, the motion passes. Article 8, Town Road Repairs for 2025. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $265,000 for the repair of existing town roads in 2025 and authorize the withdrawal of $100,000 from General Road Maintenance Fund created in 2014 for that purpose. The balance of $165,000 is to come from unreserved fund balance. Majority vote required. And this is also recommended by all of the Board of Selectmen and recommended by Budget Committee 10-0. And I will invite Vaughn Morgan to speak on this.
Okay, this article is pretty self-explanatory. We need to keep our roads in good shape. And the money will be used to continue our road program and contracting services for repairing, paving, and striping.
Is there any discussion on Article 8, Town Road Repairs? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 9. And this is to modify the provisions of the elderly exemption. Shall the town modify the provisions of RSA 7239A for elderly exemption from property tax in the town of Greenland, based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers, to be as follows. For a person 65 years of age up to 75 years, $143,000 for a person, $143,000. For a person 75 years of age and up to 80, $183,000. For a person 80 years of age or older, $230,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 3 consecutive years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, then they have been married to each other for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the taxpayer must have a net income of not more than $45,000, or if married, a combined net income of less than $72,000, and own net assets not in excess of $125,000, excluding the value of a person's residence. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen. And I invite Savon Toth to speak on this.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I good? Perfect. So this exemption is just a simple one to increase the limits that the elderly exemption, unfortunately, due to increases in Social Security in the past few years. We've had 5 residents here in town who are no longer qualified for this, which is approximately 1/3 of the people who qualify for this in our town. So by increasing this, we will just make sure that we can do right by these citizens and make sure they can get the exemption that they
Is there any discussion on Article 9? Yes, sir.
Hi, Zach Knight, 31 Sanderson Road. Totally in favor of this. I think it's essential and excellent. But when we were discussing it earlier, we were going to clarify the age brackets. So the first one was 65 to 74 years. So there's no overlap like the current age language.
I can speak to that, Vince, if you like. This language was presented to DRA. It's up to 75, so it goes by the year. So if you're 75 during the year, that's how it is presented. It's the way it's worded, not like you would be 74, 75.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 10. This is for ambulance billing. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,500 for the purpose of funding ambulance billing expenses, with said funds to come from the Fire and Ambulance Special Revenue Fund previously established in 2010. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the entire Board of Selectmen and recommended by the Budget Committee 10-0. And I'll invite Laura Malloy to address this.
This article is requested annually to permit the fund to pay for the contracted cost of professional medical billing services and recover the cost of use of the ambulance. So the fund is used to accumulate an amount available to assist with the cost if we need to replace fire and ambulance vehicles and equipment.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this article? Article 10. Seeing none, let's go to Article 11. And this is the appoint agents to expend from the Fire and Ambulance Special Revenue Fund. To see if the town will vote to appoint the Board of Selectmen as agent to expend from the Fire and Ambulance Special Revenue Fund previously established in 2010. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0. And I'll call on Laura again to address this.
So this will allow the select board to reimburse residents for medical services. And this is basically so we don't have to wait another year to get permission to pay this out. So it speeds things along.
Thank you. Any discussion on this particular article? Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question. If this passes, will we need to vote on the ambulance billing again next year? Or can you guys just expend that?
Does anybody want to do?
No, the way the warrant article is written, this one supersedes the previous one, but we haven't changed that warrant article yet. That will have to be rewritten for next year's vote, so we have to discontinue that warrant article and take over the billing services part out of that. So
Thank you.
That's for further discussion.
All right, further discussion? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 12, Fire Department Protective Gear. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 for the purpose of purchasing 10 sets of fire protective gear for members of the fire department, with said funds to come from the Fire and Ambulance Special Revenue Fund previously established in 2010. Majority vote required, and this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 10-0. And I'll call on Vaughn Morgan.
Okay, this one is also pretty self-explanatory. To update and replace firefighter protective equipment that is needed for new and existing personnel, and to ensure that each member will have 2 sets of gear.
Thank you, Vaughn. Any discussion on this article? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 13, Purchase of Hose for the Fire Department. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $32,000 for the purpose of replacing fire hose for the fire department, with said funds to come from the Fire and Ambulance Special Revenue Fund previously established in 2010. Majority vote required, and this is recommended by the Budget the Board of Selectmen 5-0, and the Budget Committee 10-0. And I will invite Vaughn to address this as well.
Okay, I can say the same thing again. This is pretty self-explanatory. Everything has a shelf life to it. If the hoses start to wear out, you certainly don't want the fire department to go into a house and having them put hoses through. So this is money set aside to replace those hoses.
Is there any discussion on this article? Article 13. Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 14. Authorize the payment of investment fees from CRF income. To see if the town will vote pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 35(9)(a)(2) to authorize the trustee of trust funds to pay for capital reserve funds, investment management services, and any other expenses incurred from capital reserve fund income. No vote by the town to rescind such authority shall occur within 5 years of the original adoption of this article. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0. And I'll ask Stefan Toth to address this.
Hi again. So this is a simple one that just simply allows us to pay for the investment management services out of the CRF fund. It's commonly done in other towns. No money will be taken out of principal on this, so we're not using any money in that regard. We don't have to waste it through taxation. So this is a very common sense article that I would hope that you favor of.
Thank you, Stefan. Do we have any discussion on Article 14? Okay, moving right along. Article 15. Add to the Police Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,800 to be added to the Police Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Such funds to be raised by taxation. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 9-1. And I'll ask Laura Malloy to present this.
This is setting aside money for police equipment that needs to be replaced every 5 years.
Thank you, Laura. Is there any discussion on this particular article? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mark Duggan, Tidewater Farm Road. First of all, I want to commend everybody for the funding. In past years, some of these smaller increments there were more of them, so there's few this year, which I think is great, but I think it makes, I want to just commend you on that process. I do have a question. How much is in the unreserved general fund in the town?
Want to answer that, Steve?
Are you talking about this particular?
No, I'm talking about the town's general fund, or how do you categorize that? It's unreserved or
Capital reserve fund.
Yeah,
Is that what
the terminology is.
You're talking about this capital reserve fund?
No.
Or you're talking about overall
The town.
unreserved fund balance?
The town, yes.
The total unreserved fund balance is about $2.3 million.
What percentage of the operating budget is that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well,
That
if
would
it's
be-
2.3 million and the operating budget is 6.8, it's what's that percentage? It's like 30-40%.
I don't have that number in front of me right now.
So, my point is, that we have a lot of money in the general fund. These smaller items, which I totally endorse, anything to do with service, safety, education, absolutely on board with it. But I think to add some of these smaller numbers to the tax base that's going to annualize, we should look at using that excessive general fund to fund these other things rather than go to the tax base. That's my point. So you have $2.3 million in the general fund. You could fund these other things using that fund, transfer some money over to these other safety and related, very good related objectives.
Yeah, we do try to do that, but we have to leave some money into that unreserved fund balance. Next year, every year, we have roads that we have to repair. and that takes a big chunk out of our cash. And so we try to leave at least a certain amount of money into the unreserved fund balance, you know, to take care of those expenses that we know are going to
So
come
I
up.
just want to be clear, because I'm trying to get to understanding. When I brought this up a couple of years ago, the comment was that we needed 10 to 17% was the state guideline. Well, if you read the state guidelines really closely, it's 10 to 17% of the operating budget. The operating budget is 6.8 million. If you have 2.3 million in a general fund, that seems to be far beyond what the state requirements or guidelines are. So I bring it up only because you've got 3 of these really good initiatives that need to be passed around safety that should be done, but we shouldn't fund it from additional taxes, even though they're really small. I think it's just a mindset. Use the money that you have to fund these things rather than adding to the annualized tax base. That's my comment. So, thank you.
Paul, would you mind kind of addressing that? I'm asking Paul because he's our town administrator for the bulk of the time, and he's been working on those things.
Yes, thank you. I just want to speak a little bit to Mr. Duggan's comment with regard to DRA requirements as to what the town is recommended to keep in its unreserved fund balance. What you have to remember is that the town is the property tax collection agent not only for the town, but for the school, the state with regard to education property tax, and also the county tax. And so the recommended guidelines they have are not a percentage of the town's operating budget by itself, but instead a percentage of the amount of money that we collect for all of those governmental entities. And this is very clearly expressed on DRA forms. And so in this particular year, we're going to have a combined budget between the town and the school somewhere in the order of $21 million. So the recommended amount at 10% would be approximately $2.1 million. We have approximately $2.3 million now. There could be some additional monies that lapse from 24 operations that have to be audited before we know exactly what those numbers are. And so what you will find is that the amount of recommended unreserved fund balance is going to be somewhere on the order of $2.1 to $2.2 million. As you take a look at this projected warrant here, you will see that many of the activities that we are here to discuss, we are in fact looking to fund from unreserved fund balance for that reason. So Mr. Duggan's point is well taken. We have certainly heard him on his point. The only thing I'd like to correct is that it is not 10% of the town's operating budget alone, but instead 10% of those combined figures that show on DRA forms.
Thank you, Paul.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 16. It's to change the limitation on expenditures of the existing police special detail fund. To see if the town will vote to change the limitation on expenditure of the existing police special detail fund established in 2008, to add the purpose of purchasing police equipment, including but not limited to protective equipment such as ballistic vests, police firearms, police less lethal weapons, including but not limited to electronic control weapons, batons, and pepper spray, and police enforcement equipment. 2/3 vote is required, and this is recommended by all 5 of the Board of Selectmen. And I'll call on Laura to address this.
When we talked about this special detail fund getting folded into the police department overall, their budget, I think there were 2 schools of thought on this. And then we ultimately agreed 5-0. This gives, it does give flexibility and freedom really to the select board to determine how to use those funds. I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion on this particular article, Article 16? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 17, Police Station Repairs. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $25,900 for the purpose of repairs to a heating and cooling system at the police station. This sum to be raised by taxation, majority vote required. This is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0, and the Budget Committee, 9-1. And I will invite Laura Malloy to address this as well.
The original wording of this was to, the purpose was to repair the HVAC, but it did not add the roof and some other repairs. So would you like, okay, I make a motion that we add the words "and other repairs" to, as amended.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend. It comes to me in writing. So before acting on this amendment, I'm going to open up the floor for discussion. Is there any discussion on Article 17, Police Station Repairs? Seeing none, I will go to the amendment. So there's been a motion to amend Article 17 to add the words "in other repairs." So I'm assuming it's going to read, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $25,900 for the purpose of repairs to a heating and cooling system and other repairs at the police station. Do I have a second to this amendment? We have a second. All those in favor to amend Article 17 to include "and other repairs," please lift up your voting card. Gus, did you get a count? Okay, those in opposition to the amendment, please raise your voting cards. So the amendment passes. Proceeding to Article 18, Town Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be added to the Town Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Such sum to come from unreserved fund balance. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee, 9-1. And I invite Paul Stanley to speak on this.
This one's also pretty straightforward. It's just raising some money to upgrade some of the computer systems and camera systems in the town hall. And someone would be very pleased to see that it comes from unreserved fund balance, not taxation.
Any discussion on this article? Article 18. Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 19. This is the Retirement Liability Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be added to the Retirement Liability Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Such sum to come from unreserved fund balance, majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 5-0, and recommended by the Budget Committee, 10-0. And I invite Paul Stanley to talk on this.
Another pretty straightforward one, just building up the balance in the capital reserve fund to anticipate future retirements of personnel who are entitled to leave by exit retirement for unused sick and vacation time.
Thank you, Paul. Is there any discussion on this article? Article 19. Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 20, Support of Conservation Activities. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,850 for supporting conservation. Possible uses include, but are not limited to, the maintenance of conservation land, open spaces and trails, as well as research and public outreach. Funds may also be used towards the cost share portion of conservation-related grants. The Board of Selectmen shall be named as agents to expend. This special warrant article will be a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32-7, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the said purposes are completed or by the end of 2026, whichever is sooner. These funds to come from taxation, majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 7-3. And I'll ask Stefan Toth to address this.
Hi again. So I was able to talk with the Conservation Commission Chair about this. This is primarily intended for trail maintenance and repairs back on invasive species plantings over on some of the trails here in Greenland. I know that they have a $58.50 was the amount that they got for 2 quotes in order to do this work, and this is for a 2-year contract.
Thank you, Stefan. Do we have any discussion on Article 20? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 21. Add to existing recreation CRF. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to be added to the Recreation Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 2024. Such funds to come from the unreserved fund balance. Majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 9-1. And I'll have Paul Stanley address this.
And so this one is the Recreation Committee is hoping to resurface the tennis courts that are in a state of disrepair. And we need to start to set aside some funds so that they can get some serious quotes and bids to do this work. Apparently, one of the issues in the process is when they go out to get quotes and don't actually have any money to pay for it, people aren't too inclined to give them good quotes. And the reserve fund balance of $1 doesn't get people interested. So we're going to establish a fund balance to hopefully begin the process of getting the tennis courts refinished.
Thanks, Paul. Is there any discussion on this article, Article 21? Seeing none, let's proceed to Article 22. This is Route 33 Winnicott River Bridge local match. To see if the town will vote to establish a capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 for the purpose of the town of Greenland matching share of grant money received for the design, engineering, and construction of the New Hampshire Route 33 Winnicott River Bridge, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be placed in this fund, and further to name the selectmen as agents to expend from said fund. These funds to come from taxation, majority vote required. And this is recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0 and recommended by the Budget Committee 9-1. And I'm going to have Brian Maduro speak on this.
So this article is to get started on the funding for the replacement of that bridge, which will have, in total, could cost over $15 million. Now that is being worked through the Regional Planning Commission to replace that, but we will require local match. That local match could be large, it could be small, as well as there'll be other activities we need to do, sidewalks, crosswalks, all sorts of things that we're going to find in there that we don't know about today that we have to fund to repair that the state or federal grants will not cover.
Thank you, Brian. Is there any discussion on Article 22, Route 3 Winnicott River Bridge? Seeing none, let's proceed to the last article. This is Article 23, and this comes by way of petition. Live streaming of public meetings. To require the elected town of Greenland boards to live stream all their public meetings on town hall streams, and that's in quotes, or similar platform to decided by the Board of Selectmen. Any meeting that cannot be streamed due to technical limits will be recorded and made available on the town's website within 5 business days. The required boards shall be Selectmen, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Adjustment, Budget Committee, Trustee of the Trust Fund, and Cemetery Trustees. Any board or commission that wishes to publicly live stream their meeting can do so with permission of the Board of Selectmen. Majority vote required. So I open up the floor for discussion on this particular article. If the author of the article wants to address this, please come forward if you wish, and to address it at this point.
Peter Kinner, 25 Shore Drive in Greenland. I'm not the author of the article, but somehow my name was placed here, much to my surprise this morning. But thank you. So I think the article is pretty self-explanatory. I think it's a great thing for the town to make as many of these meetings public as possible. In my former life as an environmental consultant, we worked on many big projects. It seemed like transparency and information shared between both those people who had an interest and those people who had to regulate. The best thing is to do as much of that as possible. And I think that would be the case here. We want to have the Greenland residents involved, I think, as much as possible. So I think this would help do that. And I think we have the system here already to handle this, so we wouldn't be incurring additional costs.
Peter, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why didn't you let the Conservation Commission off of this?
Well, I didn't, Vaughn, I didn't actually write this, so I only signed it, and somehow my name was like that I did. But certainly, the Conservation Commission, I would think would, I think is there a part here that says any board of commission that wishes to publicly could be added, so I think that maybe covers that, but I certainly think Conservation Commission would be great to have on there, so I wouldn't argue that if you want to have that.
Thank you.
Under New Hampshire RSA's 91A, any town body, whether it be a board, a commission, a subcommittee, is bound by 91A. So the Conservation Commission would have to be bound by state law, as with any subcommittee.
Thank you.
Barbara Fleming. What does this cost? I mean, I'm not in any way opposed to it. I think it's a great idea, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that there may be some significant cost to this, either in equipment and or personnel to operate it. We have meetings at various locations, at the town hall, here at the school, sometimes in a smaller context at the library. I guess I would question locking the selectmen into this obligation without giving them the funds and be sort of an unfunded mandate. That's a question.
I can speak to that, Vince.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
That's one of the articles in here under the town equipment. That town equipment, if that passes to go through, would be to re-equip the town hall conference room with new video equipment and recording equipment, which could be handled through, we already have a computer system, we just need to update and upgrade the camera system and the microphones. So anything that was be done at town hall, if the Article 20 passes, would be updated. We're currently spending about, I think it's $7,000 a year for town hall streams, and that would go away, and we handle everything in-house. So if I want to say when, I'm not going to say if, when that happens, we'll be saving money in that realm because we won't have to pay for town hall streams. We'll be doing it as a self-service. To your point, outside the library, for instance, whatever, that would have to be researched to see how that can be done. It can be as simple as what we're doing here today with an iPad or a laptop video recorder.
Is this meeting being video recorded?
Yes, video and audio recorded, yes.
Laura, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add to that, conversations about transparency and pushing information out to the public is our focus for this next year. And Stefan Toth is kind of spearheading this among others. So you're going to see a lot of this because we want to talk to you about it. We need feedback. We need this banter. We need this back and forth. So this is paramount.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Article 23. All right, seeing none. Having completed consideration of the articles in the warrant, is there any further business to come to the meeting? Yes, sir.
Mark Connolly, Meadow Lane. In the interest of keeping the community informed, last year there was quite a bit of conversation, and I believe even some articles about the fire department. Also, the town, it seems, has some significant problems with the current town hall. So in looking at forward thinking, I see nothing in any discussion in this group so that people can be informed. What did the fire department all of a sudden become adequate, so that's why we're not talking about it, or the town hall? And if that's not the case, what kind of is the forward thinking of where we're headed in the direction in those two topics? Thank you.
Somebody like to address that?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Yeah, we have not forgotten about that, and this is an item that we need definitely to discuss. And that is going to be on our agenda in the first part of 2025. So we will be forming a committee and discussing things with the fire department and the town hall.
Thank you, Father. Any further business? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Brian Chancellor, 542 Portsmouth Ave, Chair of the Budget Committee. I just wanted to recognize the 3 Budget Committee members who served us well, who have completed their terms. We had Mark Connolly, who just spoke. Thank you, Mark. We had Glenn Page. Thank you, Glenn. And Zach Pike. Thank you for your contribution to the budget.
Thank you. Any further business? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this deliberative session.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.